And that's how I see like the holistic part of education being, because it's like, it's not just the travel, but you're reading books together, you're watching videos together, you're like talking about how those things relate to yourself and the place and the history of that place.
This is Worldschooling Q&A. I'm Astrid, creator of The Wandering Daughter. As a traveling family, we've spent 4 years traveling full-time to over 18 countries and 6 continents. Wherever we go, we try to learn as much as we can about the countries and cultures we visit. While we didn't coin the term, we like to call this worldschooling, using the world as our classroom. Each week, my husband Clint and I will answer one question about worldschooling and share our experiences of traveling the world with our kids. Ready to get started? Great! Let's dive in.
So today's question is, what educational philosophies align best with worldschooling?
This is a tough question, I think. I'll let you start since you've done a lot more of the research around educational philosophies.
Well, I think in some ways, any kind of educational philosophy can align with worldschooling because it's so flexible and adaptable. But I think one of the things that we love about worldschooling, and if you're kind of this mindset, is just the experiential nature of it. It's not just reading about things in a book, it's seeing it with your eyes and touching, sometimes it's like touching things or experiencing it, feeling that with all of your senses. So if you're more in line with that, like educational philosophy of like learning is experiential based, then I think worldschooling lends itself to that.
Yeah, I think one that I would say is kind of a holistic experience. Immersive is another way of saying it. Really learning from just being immersed in a context. So whether that's, you're picking up language, you're picking up cultural differences, you're learning even math-based skills, like from converting currency, or you're learning history naturally just from being in an area that has a lot of history. That holistic kind of philosophy or educational mindset is definitely part of worldschooling.
Yeah, I would expand on that. In the idea of like holistic as like, when you go somewhere, you're not just doing the travel experience, but there's background research that you do, or there's discussions that you engage in as a family as you're experiencing this thing. So let me see an example. What from our own travels is we spent 3 months in Spain, in like the Andalusia region in southern Spain. And so while we were there, one of the things I love about southern Spain is just the influences from other cultures that you can find in there. And so we kind of leaned into that because we were seeing like Roman ruins and we were seeing like Arabic architecture, and it made us more curious about like, well, what's the history of this part of the world? So we, as a family, while we were there, like the kids and I read a book about, or several books about like the Romans, and well, even before the Romans, like the Phoenicians and the Romans and the Arab Golden Age. And then as we were, spending time in Spain, in that part of Spain, we were like, oh, look, this building that we are seeing is from that period in time, or like these the ruins of the salt factory was when the Phoenicians were here. So they could make that connection. And that's how I see like the holistic part of education being, because it's like, it's not just the travel, but you're reading books together, you're watching videos together, you're like talking about how those things relate to yourself and the place and the history of that place.
Hmm. What about child-led education? Because uh, I think traditional travel, what we think of travel, especially in like Western countries, is that go on vacation for 2 weeks,
Mhm.
and the
The parents
parents,
plan
yeah,
it.
the parents plan everything, and they kind of, whether you go with a tour guide or the parents are your tour guide, like
Yeah,
the kids don't really get a lot of say in that. How is
right.
that different in World Schooling to you?
Yeah, I think at least for us, we do try and make it more child led. I think
Mhm.
that actually makes the world schooling experience so much better because everyone in the family gets a say. Everyone in the family is like invested in
Mhm.
this trip and experience. So um, one of the things we make, one of the ways we make world schooling more child led is when we get to a new place. I mean, you and I, we usually end up like looking ahead of time and being like, oh, you can do
Sure.
this and you can do this and blah, 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 blah. Like, but we'll have a family meeting and we'll list out all the things. So it's like partially child led, I guess. But we'll list out all of the things that we could potentially do while we're there. And as a family, or like everybody kind of gets a chance to choose, like, this is the one thing that we have to do, that we want
Right.
to do.
Yeah.
And then that sort of informs how the trip will go.
Yeah, and what's interesting is now that if we're in places that we're more familiar with, like if
Yeah.
we've gone back to places, Mexico, for example, is
Yeah.
a great example of this, where we've been to Mexico several times. So when we go to Mexico now, we can ask the kids what is something that you want to do
Hmm.
while we're here, and they have enough context to kind of understand what there is to do
Yeah.
in those environments. So I think that becomes a little bit more child led. And of course, when we're here in the United States, like visiting family in say San Diego or something,
Yeah.
there's a lot more context that they understand. So then it can be a lot more child led.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to mention was just unschooling. The term unschooling gets connected a lot, I think, with world schooling. I think that's just because unschooling, if you're not familiar, unschooling is a philosophy of homeschooling. And unschooling is tied a lot with world schooling just because I think there's a lot of families that are unschoolers
Yeah.
in the world schooling community. Um,
For sure.
and that can mean it can mean something significant to you, or it can mean nothing to you. It just kind of depends on if you've already subscribed to the notion of unschooling, or if you don't. Some people don't like the idea of unschooling as well. How would you define unschooling?
Well, I mean, it's a broad range, right?
Right.
And I think loosely, I would say that it's um, learning without like a standard curriculum or a standard uh, philosophy
Hmm.
is how I would say unschooling is.
Yeah, and even at that, I'm sure there's going to be lots of listeners that
They're
disagree
like,
with.
no, you defined it
Yeah,
wrong.
which is
Um,
fine. Which I mean, that's the great part about like a term like that, is that
yeah, yeah.
I mean, world schooling too is very similar. It can be defined in all sorts of ways.
I think we took it. I think we had more of an slightly unschooling approach when we were traveling. Would you say that, or would you
For some
disagree?
things, I think we did have a curriculum specifically for certain things like
Math
math.
and writing and stuff like
Yeah,
that,
so I
language
think,
arts.
and we were also more structured about our day
That's
when it
true.
came to learning, and so I think we probably it depends on the day, the week, the context. I think we would sometimes be a little bit more unschooling and sometimes be a little bit more towards curriculum led,
Yeah.
or structured learning.
I
Um,
I've heard a term, eclectic unschooling. Maybe that's sort of
well,
what we
maybe,
fit into. But
yeah,
anyway, unschoolers also probably don't like to fit into different boxes
yeah,
too.
exactly. It's it's a great. I mean, it's a it's a great fit for world schooling, which is I think
Yeah.
why there are so many unschoolers at
Yeah.
world schooling. That kind of leads me to like, how would you overall define world schooling? Like what philosophy do you think world schooling kind of fits into? Um,
And like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, like anything, you can adapt world schooling to any kind of educational philosophy and mix and match too. That's what I like about it is like we have tried different things as we're traveling. Like we were in a world schooling community in Mexico and had the kids do Waldorf school for a while. And then sometime like Clint and I used to be in childcare. So we do a lot more like child-led type of learning anyway, because that's sort of how we were trained when we were in childcare. Yeah.
I would say also our kids or our backgrounds come from traditional school backgrounds. And our kids are in a traditional school right now, a traditional public school here in the United States. And so I think the one thing to understand about world schooling is very flexible, unschooling is very flexible. But the thing I would encourage families who also come from traditional school backgrounds is to be flexible. If you have a chance to do a gap year, or you have a chance to do world schooling, even if it's only for a month or two, like take that opportunity to experiment, talk to other people. Like if you're worried at all about, oh, my kid's going to fall behind in the public school system or the private school system, try to let go of that a little bit and experiment and be flexible with your learning approach. And we have not seen, in all the families that we've met, we have not seen any kid who goes back into the public school system be behind. If anything, they are ahead. Now, there may be a couple subjects that maybe they need to either catch up on or that they need to brush up on, but we've seen kids go back into the public school system. Even kids who have been out of the public school system for almost their entire lives go back into, say, high school, for example, and be able to adapt fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And that comes down to a lot of the things we've talked about in the previous episode was like resilience and some of the key skills that you learn.
Adaptability. Yeah. Yeah. If you're kind of curious about like, some of the, just in general, like how to get started with world schooling, or like how more about these like educational philosophies and stuff, I have a lot of articles about it on my website. In particular, I do have an article that's focusing on how to become a world schooling family. And that covers like these types of like mindset shifts that you should take as a, from just traveling versus like world schooling.
Cool. Anything else you want to mention?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
Well, that's all for today. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Worldschooling Q&A with Astrid and Clint. Be sure to check out the show notes for any links we mentioned in the episode, and visit my website, thewanderingdaughter.com, to dive deeper into world schooling and family travel.
If you like what you hear, please consider supporting The Wandering Daughter on Patreon. It really helps us out and keeps the show going. You'll also get exclusive perks like episode transcripts, additional resources, access to office hours with us, and more. You can find us on Spotify or the podcast app of your choice. If you're listening to this on Spotify, you can tap the bell icon to get notified when new episodes come out. And if you like this episode, please give us a 5-star review. It really helps new people find our show.
If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap the bell icon to get notified of new episodes. You can follow me on Instagram @WanderDaughter or follow The Wandering Daughter on Facebook. Links to these are also in the show notes. If you have any world schooling questions you'd like us to answer for future episodes, feel free to throw them in the comments or send us a message at thewanderingdaughter.com/podcast. Until next time, happy travels!
Bye!